Hey everybody, this is going to be my oral traditions project. For this one I selected the Navajo creation story from the Navajo tribe. So a little bit of background on the Navajo. The Navajo is actually the second largest Native American tribe, totaling over 250,000. The land in which they reside is referred to as Dinetah, or Navajo land. Dinetah covers some of Utah, Arizona, and New Mexico, and it totals around 27,000 square miles, so they have quite a bit of land. The tribal government for the Navajo was established in 1923, and this was in response to some oil that was found on the land. So they thought they needed a government entity for that. The tribe is divided up into groups. These groups are referred to as clans, and the clans are determined based on geographical location. Another fact about the Navajo tribe is that they value men and women equally, so within a Navajo marriage, they're both expected to contribute equally. So a little bit on the function of the creation story. The Navajo creation story forms the basis for the Navajo religion. It's something that's sacred to them, and it helps guide their morals as well as their beliefs. It's a deep-rooted in their cosmology as well. The details of the creation story are far-reaching within the Navajo culture. They have many traditions, rituals, and ceremonies that involve things from the story, such as the holy beings that they pray to. So a little bit of an introduction to the story. Their creation story is quite unique and interesting in my opinion. The Navajo creation story, or as it's referred to by the Navajo, Dine Bahane. It's a sacred story that describes the origins of the Navajo people to their land. Dihini, also referred to as the first holy or the creator being. He sang the universe into being. And in the story, there were four worlds that were traversed through before they ended up at their current one. So this is my overview slide, which kind of goes into the actual details of the story and what actually happens. There were some different variations of the story that I found online, but they were all somewhat similar. Some of the variations had different events that happened, but they all shared some major commonalities between them. So in the Navajo culture, things are typically seen in fours, such as the first four clans, the four colors that are associated with the four sacred mountains, as well as there are typically four songs within Navajo rituals. So that's why in this story you see that there's four worlds that they go through. So the first one was a small world filled with darkness. There were ant people, dragonfly people, beetle people, as well as spider people living there. It was an island in the middle of four seas, and on that island there was a single pine tree in the middle. Each of the four seas was ruled by one supernatural being, and the beings from this world started doing things that they weren't supposed to, and so that means that the world was destroyed and they moved on to a new one. So the second one was a blue world, and they had air spirit people, birds, as well as ground dwelling creatures like lizards, frogs, snakes, etc. And they were also banished from this one when an air spirit person slept with the bird chief's wife, and he found out. And they left through the sky, through a hole in the sky, and it was destroyed with ice. And then they moved on to the third one, and this was a yellow world, and there were six mountains where the holy people lived. Um, and this was where the first woman gave birth to six pairs of twins. Each pair of twins went to a mountain to be taught how to pray by the holy people. And over the span of 8 years, the twins found mates, and they brought more people into the world. After that, they moved on to the fourth world, and this was the final one, and it's the one that they currently reside in. They came to the fourth and final world, and initially the sun and the moon had not yet been created, and they were stuck on an island in the middle of a lake with high cliffs. So they needed help from the wind god to get back to land, and there, uh, the first man and the first woman built the first hogan. And a hogan is what the Navajo live in, um, or used to live in. Their little huts, basically. So yeah. So this is a little bit on the oral tradition of the story. The Navajo creation story is at the center of the Navajo religion, as you might have guessed. They believe that the story was given to them by the holy beings themselves. Religion is something that's heavily rooted in the Navajo culture, and it influences their values as well as their way of life. Um, The creation story is something that's passed down from generation to generation. The tale of the creation is told by word of mouth, and there's also a lot of artwork surrounding the myth. Um, there's also a ceremony which is called the Navajo Blessing Way, in which they give thanks to the holy beings and they recount the creation story. It's a central ritual to the Navajo, and the goal is to preserve a state of blessing with the holy beings. Also, the creation story is not something that is super well known about outside of the Navajo culture. You can kind of see this when you look for it online. There's a lot of variation between the stories, and there's not one concrete answer on that. So a little bit of similarities and differences in the native creation stories. A unique difference between Native American stories and other religions is their reliance on oral traditions. The Native American stories are passed down strictly through oral traditions, whereas in other religions, such as Christianity, they have a written text that lays it out. But for Native Americans, that's all oral traditions. Um, Other native tribes have their own version of the story that vary greatly from the Navajo version. Although many of the stories share common themes throughout, so there's some similarities there. Alright, so in conclusion, the Navajo creation story is a sacred oral tradition and it's deep rooted in the Navajo culture. Unlike many religious stories, it relies on oral traditions to keep it alive. The story is also the basis for their religion and it affects many aspects of their culture as well as their way of life. So yeah, that is my presentation. Thanks for watching.